people who were in a coma, what change surprised you when you woke up? I was in a coma for 4 days. When I woke up, everyone was talking about the baby boy I had. I had lost my long-term memory and didn't even remember being pregnant. My son was at the children's hospital in the NICU. I delivered him via C-section at 29 weeks. All this was due to me having Crohn's disease. I found out after I woke up, my colon had ruptured during my pregnancy. My husband said I was talking like a child when I first woke up. When I woke, I felt super tired, but then the next few days, kind of restless. I remembered one conversation my mom had with a nurse while I was under. After a couple of days, I got my long-term memory back and remembered everything up until my second surgery, then nothing until I woke up. My son was my third surgery. Edit. So my son was what surprised me. Hey fellow Crones, gotta say, your diagnosis story sounds pretty awful. Hope you and the little one are doing better now. Back in the 90s, my great-grandfather had a stroke. He was in a coma for 3 weeks, and when he woke up, he could not speak English. All he could speak was the Choctaw language. He had learned it when he was a kid, because his family lived right near a Choctaw reserve, and he played with a lot of those kids. He spoke it fluently at that time, but forgot it over his life to where he couldn't remember any of it by this time. This went on for around 10 days, and then he woke up from a night's sleep and could suddenly speak only English again, not remembering a word of Choctaw. He was also able to repeat verbatim every conversation that had been held in the room that he was in. I was in a coma for 9 days. When I woke up, I was still on a ventilator. When they took me off the ventilator, my body didn't remember how to breathe on its own. I literally had to relearn how to breathe. It took me a few days. I had no natural sense of how long or deeply to inhale, how long to hold it, how long to exhale. I had to put all my mental focus towards breathing. It was really weird. Edit. For all the people wondering how I slept, I didn't for the first couple days. If I dozed off, my blood O2 monitor would start beeping and wake me up. Then a nurse would yell at me from across the ICU to remember to breathe. I couldn't talk because I'd had the tubes down my nose and throat, but I remember one time I woke up, really exhausted, to that damn beeping. So I started focusing on breathing again, but I was really angry about it. My nurse came running over yelling at me to breathe. I glared at her and screamed in my non-existent voice, "I am." She must have read my lips and felt the rage because she just put her hands up and said, all right, good job," then walked away. Anyway, shared that because I've never had the opportunity to before. My ability to breathe normally was back within a month or so, and my health is good nowadays, so I wouldn't say it had any permanent effects. I'm now manual breathing, so thanks for that. Don't forget to blink. A good friend of our family went into a coma for half a year. Finally, when he woke up, he was stunned why his wife looked so old. He actually lost the last 15 years of his memory. He knew he had 2 children, but they were babies, and he didn't even know about his 3rd child, and the memory never came back. He skipped from no mobile phones to smartphones to laptops. Everything was new to him. Being stuck in early 90s, but actually being in the 2000s, there was a lot of change to handle. But learning you missed all your children growing up was the hardest for him. This is the saddest story I've seen in this thread. Oh Lord, this is awful. He must feel like he's being punished, and it must be for something terrible. At least he knew who his wife was. They had met after his memory line, he wouldn't know anything about her. My wife was in a coma. 2 weeks medically induced. When she woke up, she had very wrong memories. They were all based on conversations people had while in the room with her. For example, she thought they flew her to Washington, D.C. for treatment. While she was in a coma, my father-in-law mentioned how he just flew back into town from D.C. on a work trip. Somehow, she overheard this while out, and her brain interpreted it to mean she flew to D.C. Even after we explained to her the reality of where she was, it took days for her to come to terms with reality. Edit. She was in a coma about 10 years ago. She is not currently in a coma. My brother-in-law had a brain tumor, so he was out for a while when he was first brought to the hospital. The nurses happened to be of Asian descent, so when he was awake, he kept apologizing to people for making them have to come to Japan to see him. That's funny. In situations like that, you have to find humor when you can. My wife and I laugh now about all the crazy stuff she believed happened. My stepdad was in a coma/ICU for about 3 weeks. Woke up and he couldn't find his teeth. We lived for a week, completely forgot where we put them. Then he dropped dead at the bathroom sink in the hospital. Out of nowhere, they revived him. Couldn't figure out why he could barely breathe. Then the hospital sat us down and showed us the x-rays with his dentures in his body. They forgot to take them out when they put the tubes in his mouth, blocking his air pipes or whatever. So yeah, we found them there. I was in a coma for 4 days from bacterial meningitis. When I woke up, I was completely deaf. I had to communicate with my parents and doctors with a notepad and pen. Some hearing gradually returned in my left ear, but the right ear is still 100% deaf to this day. Yo, someone else who had bacterial meningitis. I'm so grateful you survived. Trust me, it could be so much worse. Thanks, man. I'm glad I made it too. Docs gave me a 10% chance of living. Glad you pulled through as well. Edit was talking to my mother. She said the doctors only gave me a 5% chance of making it. Fuck. My wife was in a medically induced coma for 4 days. She had a reaction to contrast dye and her heart stopped for 20 minutes. For nearly 3 months, she was confabulating about her long-dead parents. She would speak about them like they were in the next room, or she would say her daughter or brother called, but they hadn't. Over and over, she thought her mom was alive, then her dad. Drove me crazy having to gently correct her many times per day. She would come up with amazing tales about what people, relatives, friends, neighbors were doing, what they said, truly creative fiction. 3 months later, she began to come back. The confabulations stopped. Now things are reversed. She can remember recent events, but her long-term memories are gone. I don't know what that's like, but it must be awful. She cries sometimes for her lost memories, but overall, she is doing very well. My dad had a reaction to contrast dye after a head injury, had seizures, and it was like his brain rebooted. He could only say, "How's the girl? My sister had just born." He couldn't hold things or grab them, spent several months in therapy. At the end, his mood changed. He became very irascible, had little patience, and became very sleepy. He's fine now, except for some neck pains. Irascible. Having or showing a tendency to be easily angered. You're welcome, future raiders. About 20 years ago, my cousin had a severe head injury from a fall. He was about 20 at the time, and was in a coma for almost 4 weeks. When he woke up, he fairly quickly discovered that his memory was eidetic. He could repeat entire conversations back word for word, and even tell you the date and time you said something. Also, he could memorize images with just a few seconds glance. His memory is still eidetic today. It's annoying as fuck. Whenever he reminds me of something I said in the past, usually something I can't even remember, I suggest that we hit him in the head again. Looking at what happened last time he was hit in the head, he'd probably just develop another borderline superpower. Better not risk getting corrected or called out even more accurately. Nah, he's not working correctly. Need to switch him off and on again. DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, sent me into a coma. I have vague memories of being sick beforehand, but my overall sense of time was just mush. Even years later, I can't establish a correct timeline. I have flashes of memories of different doctors coming in and out of the room. Once I was out of the coma, I was still pretty out of it. When you're on an insulin drip, they check your sugar every hour. I could never actually sleep, but I felt asleep the whole time? It's a hard feeling to describe, just mushy, runny time. Edit, my boyfriend, a non-Redditor, saw me replying to various comments and asked why I was engaging with trolls. I read some of the comments. He and I are both totally impressed with how much support from random strangers exists out there. You guys are all awesome for realizing that this life isn't exactly easy. We've all thought about punching someone when they say either, "Oh, that's what my grandma has and she's fine, at least it's not cancer," or the absolute worst, "Are you allowed to eat that?" Thank you all, you're amazing. While never in a coma, I've been in DKA twice in 27 years, and the fuzzy/foggy head is the one thing I totally remember. So odd. I was in a coma for close to 6 weeks. When I woke, I had to learn everything again. I had most of my speech abilities, but my motor control was horrid. I had to figure out how to wipe my ass as well as walk up and down stairs again. That took about 3 weeks. I had lost a shit ton of weight too. I was 6'3" tall and weighed about 145 pounds. 6 weeks? Holy God. Massive head trauma followed by being shot up with MRI dye that I was deeply allergic to. I died on the table for minutes. Edit. My cousin was in a coma cause of a motorcycling accident. When he woke up, it's like he was transported back in his younger days. Acts and talks like a kid. He's better now, after about 7 years, though there's still something off with the way he speaks. He stutters and talks fast, like how children do when they're excited. He has gotten talkative too. So what has surprised him when he woke up is the fact that he has a daughter of his own. That sounds like some lasting effects of brain trauma. I had a coworker who was in a coma for a few months, and when he came back to work, he was an entirely different person. He was always a chill, nice dude, but after the coma, I don't think I ever heard him badmouth anyone ever again. He also had significant brain trauma and nerve damage that resembled a muscular disorder when he walked around. One leg was always very stiff. The best of these stories is the football player who got knocked out and lived a full separate life while he was in a coma, had a family and everything. Then he noticed something weird about a lamp and it all unraveled. Then he woke up and could not comprehend he had been out of it for just a week. Fab story. Someone will have the link. Medically induced for approximately a week due to sepsis. When I was in, I thought I was a bird with my wings outstretched that was slowly freezing to the ground. When I woke up, I thought I was in Taos, but it looked like Raton. I was in Albuquerque, in a hospital that I had worked in for years. I thought I was 10 years younger. I thought I had gotten into a wreck, and my fiancé at the time was an abusive ex-boyfriend. I thought my fiancé had found me naked on the side of I-25 and had taken to a veterinary hospital. It took another month and a half for me to understand what happened. I was in and out of surgery and died a couple times in that time. Once they were changing out my wound vac and I looked down and saw inside of me, then things started making a little more sense. I still can't eat cheeseburgers. Wait, what did cheeseburgers have to do with it? When I looked down and saw myself open, it resembled a cheeseburger that someone had cut in half and left in a fridge uncovered for 2 weeks. I posted a pic of it a couple weeks later, looking much better, in r/medical gore a while back. Little late to the party, but after a suicide attempt which led to an overdose, I spent about 2 days in a coma and almost died. While obviously nothing changed in 2 days society-wise, my personality changed heavily, and I don't consider myself the same person as before the coma. I feel like that side of me died, and different parts of my brain took over, creating a new personality and control. Sorry if this is personal, but do you think the parts of you that were suicidal died? Do you think you changed for the better or worse? It's kind of hard to explain, but I feel broken. Anything that's not in the present feels like fake memories. Do you know the feeling of acting on pure instinct? Like baby falls and you catch it without thinking or anything like that. That's how every memory feels. I'm fully here, but in less control. My nephew, 14 years old, was in a medically induced coma for over 3 months. During that time, he had lost about 30% of his body weight as his muscles atrophied. His first remark upon seeing himself for the first time was, "Did you forget to feed me?" Which was incredibly hard to hear since his family had sat crying at his bedside every moment he was unconscious. I have to give your nephew points. He chose some good words for his re-entry. My parents being in the same room together? That was really weird. I love this comment. As someone whose parents split up when I was a child and only appear in the same room together under tragic circumstances. Was in a coma for 2 days, not medically induced. Woke up utterly confused at the time and day. Didn't know if it was morning, evening, what day of the week. Couldn't believe where and what time it was. Was very agitated. Had vague memories of what happened before it all went black, but there were very confusing and erratic ones. Turned on my computer to check the date time. Realized I'd missed an exam and that a whole 2 days had passed without my knowledge and freaked out about that. Frantically charged my phone to check for messages. My absence mostly went unnoticed and I felt extremely lucky, then relieved, then sad and started bawling uncontrollably. Edit, should have mentioned, this was a hypoglycemic coma. I didn't just open my eyes and plop, I'm back on my feet and I'm freaking out. My first memory of easing back into consciousness is of me rocking back and forth in a fetal position on the bathroom countertop while eating an apple. Then some time passed by and I later regained consciousness, but this time lying on the floor. I don't recall how I got the apple or to the countertop or back to the floor, but as my mind started working again, I was distressed and extremely agitated. Very recently went into a 3-day coma following a suicide attempt. I have very vivid memories of watching How to Train Your Dragon during that time, so I can only assume it was playing on the television in my room and my mind filled in the blanks. Oh hey, I finally got to one of these fairly quickly. I was in a short coma, 3 months, but the time really messed me up since across the new year, it felt so much longer. I was also really groggy and had surgery on a leg and totally thought it was amputated, so my first response was to freak out and start ripping everything out. Do not do this. Short coma, 3 months. This is the longest length I have seen on here so far. I wasn't really in a coma, but I remember when I woke up from having my appendix removed, I couldn't read. I was 13 at the time and I loved to read books, so I wasn't illiterate or anything. I could see fine too, I just wasn't able to read. It only lasted for a few minutes, but it was very weird. Sounds like your brain was still booting up. I was in a coma for 16 weeks. This was when I was in New York. I woke up and 2 hours later looked out my hospital window. It was October 16, 2001. I looked to where the Twin Towers were supposed to be. Imagine my surprise when all I saw was crews of people cleaning up rubble from the 9/11 attacks. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to press like button and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys. If you want to suggest interesting Reddit posts, drop them down in the comments. Till next time, peace.